Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Smart Notes and your connected knowledge base on the go. My name is Matt Caton, and we've got a really great webinar to share with you today, talking about a lot of specific features that are really going to benefit you in just your everyday life and everyday interaction with your digital brain. We all lead such busy lives, and information comes at us in a lot of different directions, whether it's through email, web pages, documents, phone conversations, and so on. And so we're going to be highlighting features of the Brain software that will really enable you moving forward to interact very fluidly with your digital brain. Now, joining me today is Chase Ingersoll, answering all of the questions coming in into the GoToMeeting question panel. Hello, Chase.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'll be trying to answer all your questions today. If I don't get into all of them, you can send us a message at support@thebrain.com, and we'll be happy to go over anything that we missed.
Fantastic. And also we'll select a couple of those questions to just make the end of the call a little bit more interactive. If you've got questions about specific features that maybe I don't get a chance to cover, or you want to go into more detail on something that I've overviewed in today's webinar, feel free to ask about that, and some of those questions will be selected for the QA at the end of the hour, at the end of our call today. So let's go ahead and get started. The first brain that I have open right now is specifically called Smart Notes and Knowledge on the Go. And this is sort of an overview of what we are going to be covering today, the features of the brain that we're going to talk about. And first, I would like to talk a little bit about information strategy. We all have data. We all have information and files, documents, web pages, emails, phone numbers, notes, so much information coming our way. It can be overwhelming. And the brain is a fantastic tool that enables you to interact and collect your data. And also, some features of the brain will actually remind your own organic brain of other related pieces of information that exist within your brain database. And we're going to be covering all of those topics today. We're actually going to start with sort of a combination of these two subcategories under information strategy: meaningful categories and no limits knowledge. And what we mean by that is one very important component of starting out with the Brain software, or if you're an existing longtime member user of the Brain software, but you're starting on a new project, is have no limits on getting your information into the brain. You can always come back at a later date and finesse and garden and edit that data and that content. So don't let an idea seem too far-fetched. Go ahead and get that information into the brain. At a later date, you might be able to circle back and tweak that information or conform it to fit in with the project that you're working on. I'll show you exactly what I mean when I start demoing and creating new data in an existing brain in just a moment. And creating meaningful categories really is a way of saying, create a structure, a framework within the brain that your data will later adhere to. And once again, you can always come back and manipulate and modify that information at a later date, but getting that framework in, that structure of a project that you're working on, or that outline of a book you're writing, of a topic that you're interested in, get that into the brain. You can always manipulate it at a later date. And then finally, we're going to start capturing data, importing information into the brain, and building upon that those structures, that framework that you've already created. And we'll then get into visualizing. That's really data importing and data capture is what we're really going to be highlighting and talking the most about today. And then we'll go back and talk about how we can visualize that information, interact with it in the future quickly and easily from multiple locations. And that brings me over to the modality of the user. Now, notice I didn't say what's the phrase that mobility of the user. It's not just the mobileness of the brain. In other words, taking your brain with you on your iPhone or iPad or being able to log in online. The modality of the user is really what we're trying to say is you will create a process of interacting with your data, with your brain, in a way that makes your work much easier to do. Everything will be much more fluid through the process of creating a useful structure within your brain and accessing that from multiple locations, even into what we call disconnected mode, or what I like to sometimes refer to here is plug and chug data feed. Actually, I've got a thought there called plug and chug data feed. In other words, dropping information into your brain, returning to it at a later date to sync your brain. Maybe you're working offline, you're on an airplane, you're at the park, you've got your laptop with you, but you're not online, or you've got your phone with you, or what have you. You can capture information when you're in a hurry, and at a later date, return to that data, organize it, and depend on it to be there waiting for you, so you can address that information at your leisure. Once again, you're going to see exactly what I mean when I jump into my own brain, which is what I'm going to do right now. Now, this brain that we have for you is sort of a model of today's webinar. Is going to be available for you to download at the end of the webinar. We'll have a recording of today's webinar, and you'll have access to download this brain if it's something of interest to you. I am now going to jump into my own personal brain. This is my real brain database. Sometimes I give webinars and I'm using sample brains that you can download from our website. You can download, I think we're up to maybe 30 or 40 different BRZs, brain archives, that are available throughout our website, most of them on the apps page, thebrain.com/apps, APPS. Many different sample brains there for you to download, and you can click on File, Import, and import a BRZ, a brain archive, that allows you, maybe it's a topic you're interested in, maybe you just want to play around with the brain software, and kick the tires and familiarize yourself with the technology. Typically, I start off with the BRZ so I can add data, delete data. I wanted to start this particular webinar in my real brain. I'm going to be adding real content that's of value to me, and in an existing brain. And if any questions come up about this brain, I'm happy to give you a little tour, click around, and share with you some of the features that I'm highlighting today in my real brain database. So today's topic is going to focus mainly on, you can see I've got a couple of key categories under my name. So my family, my friends. I'm a foodie. I love everything about food, cooking, and eating healthy and so forth. Health is its own thought here. Land, my interests, so hobbies. Typically those fall under either land or water, but sometimes it's not necessarily related to either, such as books or movies, things of that nature. So this is my framework. This is the structure that everything else in my world adheres itself to. Now there's subcategories under all of these. If I go into water, I've got information of where I like to go fishing or scuba diving, going to visit aquariums and so forth. Under, where is it? Health, food, let me get back to, there it is, land. I've got information about my cars, going on vacation, going camping, and so forth. Today, I'm going to be talking about gardening around my house. So my Beverly house, I'm going to be creating a new thought in this category that we're going to focus on today, and just talking about my new 2022 garden updates. So now let me just pause for a moment. I gave you just an overview of some different categories that all of my thoughts connect to and all of my data connects to. Obviously, everything in my life is related to me in some way, whether it's gardening or remodeling, you know, my neighbor's phone numbers, my refinancing of my home loan, and so forth. All of that information is related to me. But obviously, I don't just have one thought and everything in my life is connected to that one thought. That wouldn't be very useful. So this is that framework that we talked about, the key framework that you build. And here again, don't hold back when you're working on a new project or you're just starting with the brain. Create those key categories that are important to you. You can always break them down a little bit further at a later date, but it gives you that nice structure, that nice backbone of a brain database that all of your data can easily be found and connected to over time. So under the Beverly House, I'm going to create a new thought for, what did I call it? The new 2022 garden. So now this is a brain that I've had for many, many years. You just saw as I was creating that new thought, already one of the features that we're going to be talking about today. I've got existing content in this brain, and my brain will help to remind me of that existing content. If under the new 2022 garden, I decided I wanted to build a koi pond, which I would like to do. So I'm going to start typing in the word koi, and notice I just type in the letter K, and I am presented with an existing thought list. So this is the first feature that I really want to highlight today that's all about your connected knowledge base. Your own brain may forget about data over time that you once researched, or you were once interested in, or you once discussed with a business colleague. Your digital brain is never going to forget that information. Whatever it is I'm about ready to start typing in, every letter I add, it's going to truncate this list and match whatever it is I've typed in so far. I have had koi ponds at my property in the past. Even as a kid, my parents built a small little koi pond. I thought it was so cool. So it's something that stuck with me. And so I've got a lot of information here about koi ponds existing in my brain, and I can tap into that. Why recreate the wheel in my brain when I already have information about koi ponds? So I'm just going to link to this existing koi pond thought. I double click, and there I've got a direct link to that koi pond that goes into the backyard that was in a house that my wife and I lived in years and years ago. So all of that information about koi ponds and koi and fish and plants and so forth is all easily accessible to me. Once again, I don't need to recreate the wheel on that data. And I can continue on then from here for my new 2022 garden, creating topics or areas of all the other things that I'm going to be working on. Yes, I'd like to have a koi pond at the end of the garden. I'm going to have a veggie patch. I'm going to have a flower garden. And this is that no limits mind mapping that we talked about earlier. I'm not filtering anything. If I get a crazy idea about building a pool, I'm just going to go ahead and add it in. I'm not going to add a pool, but who knows, at a later date, my kids might convince me we need a pool. Maybe it'll change into, all right, let's compromise and just get a hot tub, or maybe we just want to, just get a little kiddie pool to dip our feet in, in the summertime, something like that. I'll just go ahead and create the thought, and we'll see where that goes in the future. And then I certainly want an updated patio. So this is becoming more than just a garden. This is becoming just a backyard overhaul. Yes, it started with the idea of creating a veggie patch, but as you can see, I've added now pool, koi ponds, flower gardens, patio. Maybe I want to, all of this overlooks my garage, which is falling apart. We need to rebuild the garage. So like I said, you can always come back and filter and modify at a later date. So I'm going to click on this thought to open up the thought properties display. Anytime you click on the active thought, it opens up the thought properties display. If I had navigated away from that thought and I alt click, I can get to the thought properties display that way as well. So this is no longer the new 2022 garden, it's the new 2022 backyard. And there's where I'll be focusing all of my interests in my personal recreational brain over the next few weeks and months and so forth. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start bringing some of that data in. I'm going to start with basic ways to bring in data. If you've ever joined a Brain 101 call that we have every Friday, You've seen that I like to highlight drag and drop and all the different features and options you have in the brain for drag and drop. So I'm going to cover that really quickly, and then we're going to expand into other ways to get data into your brain. So especially and particularly when you're in a hurry. So drag and drop. The default setting for drag and drop into the brain is to create a copy of that file or that document. So here I've got some existing data, actually that's about koi ponds, and I've found a couple of raised veggie beds, so I can go to the veggie patch thought, and here's a nice little PDF that I can drag and drop into the brain. Like I said, default setting for drag and drop into the brain is to create a copy. The original would still be there, and now you have an internal copy inside your brain. But before I even drag and drop, I want to share with you, if you click on options in your brain and go down to preferences, if you're on a Mac, you would click on TheBrain and then preferences. And on the behavior tab, you can specify how you want the brain to behave for the drag and drop process. As you can see, I've modified the default setting. So when I drag and drop, I don't copy a file, I move that file into the brain. And the reason is quite clear. I love my data inside the brain. I don't like copies all over the place. I sync my brain to the brain cloud for online access to my data, and I keep my brain in sync in multiple locations. And that's a key topic of today's discussion as well. Information and your connected knowledge base on the go. Where are you going? Are you in a park on your phone? Are you at the office? Are you at home? Wherever I go, I'm going to have my data with me. And to ensure that, I am going to make sure anytime I drag and drop into the brain, I'm moving that data internally inside my brain database. These other options are here for you in case you want to link to a shared drive at your office where other people are updating files. But if that's, let's say for instance, the O drive, and then when you get to your home office, you're not connected to the O drive, you're not going to have access to that link. The thought will still be there. The path to the O drive will still be there, but clicking on it would be the same as clicking on it on your desktop. An O drive on that machine doesn't exist, so the brain can't open the file. So I like to move my data internally into the brain. That's the setting that I have. So now when I start working on this veggie patch and I know I want raised planter beds around the edges, how to do that, I have no idea. I'm going to learn from this document that I found, drag and drop into the brain. And notice it disappeared from my directory. It's no longer there. It's been moved internally inside the brain. And the brain is really great with PDFs because we've got a built-in PDF viewer. We also, you'll see in just a moment, can view web pages and web-friendly content in the brain's built-in web browser. And notice I can scroll through, the first couple of steps are building from found sources. So this looks like it's building using cinder blocks. I don't want to do that. I want to find a wood frame deck. That's a little further down in the document. So I can use these thumbnails to jump through the document. And I can turn those on and off in the brain's built-in PDF viewer as well. So there we just simply did a drag and drop. I'll grab one more document. Here I've got a rain garden biofiltration document. It's an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to drag and drop that into the brain. And if I drag and drop to the wrong place, that's under veggie patch. This is for a rain garden. I'm going to create a new thought called rain garden. And I'm going to connect that rain garden document that I just drag and dropped into the brain to this thought instead of veggie patch. There it is in my past thought list. So I can click and drag and connect rain garden to the document I just drag and dropped in, and I can right click and unlink from veggie patch. Once again, we're sort of chiming in on the topic of having no filter. Get the data into your brain. You can always come back and manipulate and rearrange and change things around at a later date. And there's no built-in Word document viewer or editor in the brain or Excel spreadsheet viewer. So for this document, you can see it shows up as an attachment. I click to launch, and of course it launched on another monitor, but there's my document launches in its native application. So anytime you bring data into the brain the brain is going to launch those attachments in their native application. Even content that opens up right here within the brain's built-in PDF viewer or web browser. Let's go back to VeggiePatch. And once again, there's that document viewing in the brain. But if I want to pop this document out into my default PDF viewer, there's a button right here at the top. I click on open and it launches in Adobe Acrobat Reader. So I've got easy access to all of my data. So that's a little bit, just a high level overview of drag and drop into the brain. We're gonna come back to that and talk about other ways to get data into the brain as well, after I spend a little bit of time talking about the notes. So let's give our brain content area a little bit more screen real estate. The content area is where your note is going to appear. So right now I've got my map links and backlinks. We'll talk about those in just a moment. And the thought name or title is at the top. If I want to rename this to vegetable patch, I can do that right from the title in the content area. And when I click away, notice it renames there in the thought name as well. I can open the thought properties, or I can rename from the title in the content area. The content area is also where all of our attachments are going to be. So if I go back to one of my new attachments and close it, you can see the attachment is there for me to click. It's going to launch in the brain, but I can add my notes down below. So as soon as I want to start adding notes about building a raised bed, I want to use natural wood. No, what's that called? Pressure treated products or anything with chemicals. So just a nice little quick note for me. The notes are really, really convenient to use in the Brain application. They're my favorite feature of the Brain application. And every thought that you create in your brain will always have a note for you to jot down a quick idea, thought, notes on a conversation, meeting notes, and so forth. Now, the notes are formatted using Markdown. If you're not familiar with Markdown, or you don't know what I mean about Markdown, have no fear. You can simply use the toolbar buttons up above the content area. So in the toolbar, I can just simply click on a word and make it bold, or click on a word and make it underlined. And as you can see, the brain adds the Markdown syntaxes for me. So Markdown syntaxes are easy, simple tags that you put on either side of a word or phrase to provide formatting: bold, underline, italicized, and so forth. And you can see all up above the different options that you have, even with adding checklists, formatting as far as justification, center, left, right. There's symbols to do those justifications as well. And you'll see them appear. If I want this to be centered up, I'll just put my cursor at the beginning of the line and say, I want to center this text. And you can see that is the actual symbol. Those are the symbols that you would type in. So colon dash colon is going to center up your text. Now, as soon as I click away from the note, I'm no longer editing the note. The Markdown syntaxes, our Markdown tags, are no longer appearing. So they're only there while you're in editor mode and actually actively modifying that text or content. As soon as you click away, the syntaxes don't appear. That feature can be turned on and off. If you always want them there, you can turn that on in the brain preferences. But I like those to not appear when I'm not actively editing. So I simply click away and I can get a nice clean display of my content. Pressure is underlined. The word natural is in bold as I specified. So if you want to know more about the Markdown syntaxes that the brain adheres to, click on the question mark icon and that will launch. Once again, it launched in another on another monitor, but that will launch the brain's Markdown reference guide. 3 columns. The first column is what the button looks like in the toolbar. Next is what you would manually type in if you wanted to just add Markdown syntaxes in line as you're typing. And finally, the output, what you're going to see or what what's going to happen to the text when you add that content. So I've got some sample text and we're creating everything from scratch today, but rather than slowly watch me type out a much longer note, I actually have a sample note in another brain that's all about the new deck that I'm going to be building. So I'm going to go into rebuild the garage, updated patio. So now I just copied that from actually have, as you can see, just another brain on my other monitor, and there's the note that I typed up ahead of time. So I'm going to click and Control V, just paste that right in. So there's a few features here that I want to highlight with you that really make information discovery much easier for you in the future. Now, as you can see, this is a fairly long note. It doesn't fit on one page. I'm scrolling, and if I add more and more content, let's just copy this a couple of times. I'm going to copy that text and paste and paste and paste. It's the same text, but I'm just filling things in a little bit. You can see it becomes a long, rambling note, but I am actually using some of the paragraph styles. So you can see here by concrete removal, prep for the new deck, I'm adding these little hashtags. So adding 3 hashtags is creating a heading. You can create subheadings, headings, subtitles, and so forth. I've got a concrete removal heading. If I go underneath here and I add 4 hashtags, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and concrete companies. So in case I don't want to actually do the concrete removal myself, I'm going to hire someone else. Notice I spelled that word wrong. So thank you, spell check. So I can fix that. And my companies are going to be company A, B, C, and D. So I've added some new information there with a subheading. So I've got headings and subheadings on this long, long note. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a table of contents. The table of contents will help you in these long notes over time to really quickly and easily access your information. So not only can all of these headings, subheadings, titles, and so forth, you can actually minimize and maximize that content. So if there's a lot going on here with purchasing the frame, I can minimize that and maximize that. That's one advantage. And you can see that little chevron or that little arrow appears anytime you hover over the hashtags. I can also add a table of contents. I'm going to do that by using the button in the toolbar up above, insert the table of contents, and now if I quickly want to navigate to my area in this rather long note about selecting the location of the fire pit for my new patio, I can just click and it's going to advance me to that location. You will find as your notes continue to grow and grow over time how adding a sort of accumulating a couple of different features of the notes will give you smart notes over time. And this is the first one that I'm highlighting, adding those table of contents once you start using the paragraph formatting, the paragraph styles within your notes. The next feature that I want to share with you in the notes is all about the backlinks and unlinked mentions. Now, you may have noticed on every thought at the very bottom of the note, I get these mapped links. Mapped links are simply what is being displayed in the Plex. So here you can see my updated patio has a parent thought, that's the new 2022, new 2022 backyard. Here are all the sibling thoughts over on the left. If for my updated patio, I want a child thought for the picnic area, and picnic is spelled wrong, so I'll right click. I like it like that, picnic area. And how about a new grill? So I've added those 2 child thoughts in the Plex, and as you can see, it's been added here into my mapped links. The advantage of viewing your mapped links in the content area is that I can actually minimize the plex. If I'm really focused on the notes, hey, this information looks good, but what about that koi pond? If I build my deck in this area, what about, how does that change the koi pond? I need to make a few notes on that. I don't need to open the Plex back up and start navigating around. I can just click on koi pond. It takes me to the koi pond thought. And I want to look at the different types of koi fish and take a note on, Blue Ridge hatchery. So I'm going to go to that thought in my brain. So I can continue navigating from the mapped links area without having to reopen the Plex, if that's of interest to you. I like using the Plex, but I found myself more and more just quickly seeing the next thought that I want to get to in that map links area and utilizing that as well. So here over on the right, I'll leave the Plex open so you can see it updates as I use the map links navigation option. So that falls under koi pond, just part of my new 2022 backyard. And right now I am focused on the updated patio. So I get right back to that thought. So now let's talk about backlinks and thought links and unlinked mentions and the difference between those three items. Backlinks are, unlinked mentions is what I want to start with, because an unlinked mention will appear for you as you are typing in the note. So here you can see some of the words in this particular note are underlined in blue. Now, if it's underlined in red, that simply means it's spelled wrong. But if it's underlined in my scenario, blue, that means it is an unlinked mention. That means that there's a thought in my brain that is named with that particular content. The brain is helping you, it's your connected knowledge base. It's helping to remind you of existing data elsewhere in your brain that your own organic brain may have forgotten. So yes, I have a thought called wood. I have a thought called cedar. There's a thought in my brain for Lowe's. So these are my unlinked mentions. I actually want to activate the ipe thought. And ipe, by the way, is a Brazilian hardwood. It's a species of wood that's very hard and dense, and it's really great for decks, but it's a little expensive. But I've got existing data for the ipe thought here in my brain. So that's an unlinked mention. The thought name is being mentioned in your notes. Now, if I close, this is defaulting to the web page for the wood database, all talking about ipe. But look, once again, down at the bottom, I've got my mapped links. So the visualization or an outline of the visualization appearing there in the content area. And down below is where ipe is appearing elsewhere within my brain. So these are all of my other unlinked mentions. I've got a thought called slab replacement. So another house where I tore out an old concrete slab and we built a wood deck, and ipe was mentioned there. So I can navigate to that thought and see if I've got any useful information about ipe. And I do. Ipe is $5 a linear foot, whereas pressure treated is $2.50, but composite is $3 a square foot. So I've got some great pricing information on this thought in my brain that I wouldn't have, I know I would not have remembered those prices. Look at the note on this thought. It was back in 2008. Maybe things have changed since then, but I still get a pretty good idea that composite wood is going to be a cheaper alternative, or Kambara might be an option now as well. And I can navigate right back to my updated patio and just make a note of that. Too expensive, try Kambara. So those mapped links are useful for quickly navigating to another related thought. The unlinked mentions for information that you forgot you even had. But now we can actually turn that into an actual link. So ipe, I don't just simply want to know that it's there. I'm going to be clicking on that ipe link a lot. My wife and I have to decide what we're going to build this patio on. We're going to be researching and spending a lot of time on this thought. So I want to make this an actual link. So a permanent link back to the ipe thought. I don't have to right click. I see that it's now sort of highlighted as web links are. I can click and it's going to take me directly to my ipe thought. And if I make a few more notes here, or if I scroll down, I can see now I've got 3 unlinked mentions. So Ipe is being mentioned on 3 other thoughts, actually twice on one thought and once on another. And it has 1 backlink where it's a direct link. Sometimes you don't need to visualize the link in the Plex. And in those scenarios, that's when I create a thought link. And when I navigate to that thought, I can see it appearing as a backlink. That means the thought updated patio has a link to the thought Ipe that I'm currently on. So those are the difference between your mapped links, your linked thoughts, your unlinked mentions, and backlinks. It's might be a lot to keep track of, but you'll notice, again, as your brain grows and evolves over time, how your brain will remind you of that related data, that related content that exists elsewhere in a very large brain. Not only, as you saw earlier from my Koi example, of these thoughts already exist, but even as I'm typing, if I get back into my updated patio and my koi pond, the should have 10 different species of koi. Now here I can see koi as the child thought, but once again, if I rename this to water feature or something like that. And here's one, the water garden is an existing thought within my brain. So I can right click, that's very interesting. I didn't expect that. And I'm just gonna activate it. And this is an area where you can actually purchase supplies for water gardens or koi ponds and I utilized that from the Madison House thought that I was on. So let's go ahead and get back to my updated patio. I've shared with you map links, backlinks, and unlinked mentions. I want to start talking now a little bit more about BrainBox and another option that you have. And here we're keying in on information on the go. We're always in a hurry. You've seen me drag and drop documents. You've seen me casually type in some notes. Now I stumble across some information and I'm in a big hurry and I don't have time to open my thought, open my brain, navigate to the right thought and start doing some drag and drop into the correct location. I just want to capture it to review at a later date. And that can be facilitated through BrainBox. And that's going to bridge us from using the brain on our desktop software into the iOS device and mobile applications and web content as well, web browsing on the web. Even if the brain isn't installed on that machine, you can still add content into your brain. So that is all facilitated through BrainBox. So before I get started with BrainBox, I'm actually going to close this brain. This is the brain where I'm going to bring all my information to, but I'm going to close it for now. I'm just going to close that tab and go back to my Smart Notes and Knowledge on the Go. I'll minimize that brain and I'm going to start browsing the web. If you want to know more about BrainBox and how it works, because I'm going to be utilizing this little feature right here. It's my BrainBox extension in Google Chrome. But you can go to the Brain website and just do a search, click on the search icon and type in BrainBox or go to www.thebrain.com/BrainBox. And there's information on how you can add the Chrome extension or the Firefox add-on. You know, different web browsers call it different things. It's a bookmarklet or an extension and so forth. But here's the overview of how to add this feature into your favorite browser. Adding information to your BrainBox from a file, from a document, is actually built in as soon as you install the Brain application on your desktop or on that particular device. So let's say we wander across a website we really like, and here is Jackson & Perkins, great website for buying roses and plants and things for the flower garden that I plan on building in my new patio design. So this is great. It's going to be a great resource. I'm sure I'm going to be doing some purchases from this particular website. I am simply going to click on the BrainBox icon and notice that it has been added. The window popped up really quickly, so in case you didn't catch it, It just took a moment and it said added BrainBox extent. What did it say here? Let's click on another one. So here's another website that I really like. Burpee is all about seeds. So you can buy vegetable seeds and flower seeds. Oh, I'm gonna use this a bunch for my new fantastic garden. So once again, the little BrainBox icon, I click, adding to BrainBox added, and it has the name of the website down below. Now, you might get the login screen there if you've not yet logged into the Brain. Your browser needs to know which account to send that information to. So you do need to log into your Brain account or have a Brain account and be logged in for the BrainBox feature to work properly. If I was not logged in, I would get a little login screen there, and I could log in and continue adding information into the BrainBox. So that is quite simply how we add web content from a browser. When you're in a hurry, you find a web page, there's a lot of information to read. I've got another web page that's all about koi species. This is amazing. I didn't know there were all these different variations of koi. I certainly want to add this into my Brain. I don't have time now to add it. I click on the button and there it goes. So you've seen me add 3 web pages. What about files and documents? We can do those too. Here I've got koi nutritional information. It's a PDF that a friend of mine emailed me. This is great. Once I own koi, I'll want to feed them, and I'm gonna need to refer to this document. It's gonna do me no good to click and open and start reading through this now. I just want to add it into my BrainBox. Yes, close all tabs. So I am on a Windows machine. This is the process for adding files into your BrainBox on a Windows device. I right click, and also this is Windows 11. You might, if you're running Windows 10, or I even think an earlier version of 11, you might get a send to option appearing down below. The latest version of Windows 11, this just recently changed. There's a little share icon, so I can click on share. Nope, that's not it, sorry. Let me right click one more time, and I want to show more options. There we go, show more options, send to, there it is. So send to BrainBox is already going to be there for you as soon as you install the Brain 11 on that device. So I'm gonna send my koi nutritional information into BrainBox. Sorry, the share option, we're gonna get confused me. We're gonna get to that in just a moment. So now my PDF has been delivered to BrainBox. If you're on a Mac, down below you have, on a Mac, I think it's called, it's not the taskbar, the dock. So your Brain icon will be appearing on the dock, and if you click and drag and just hover over your Brain icon and release it, it'll add that, that file into your BrainBox. So that's the Mac procedure for adding into BrainBox. So great, we've added 3 web pages and 1 document. I am now going to return to the Brain. You can see I've got a customized icon for my Brain application. So there, I'm gonna open the Brain and select which Brain I wanna open, because now I've got a little bit of free time to start organizing. I'm gonna go into my personal Brain, and I'm going to open BrainBox. There's a little icon that appears in the upper right-hand corner, the brain symbol on a box, and that's BrainBox. And here you can see in my BrainBox is all the data that I've sent to BrainBox to be organized and categorized at a later date. There's my koi nutrition document. If I wanted to preview that, I can hover over and I can click on the little open icon so I can review that document. Yes, that is the koi nutrition document. So I can navigate to my koi pond and my koi fish, and I've got a thought for koi food, which takes me to another web page. But as a child thought, I want to keep track of nutrition. So I'm going to click on the little icon, and the paperclip will add to the existing thought. The plus will create a new thought, and the attachment to that thought will be the document, in this case, a PDF that I can continue browsing through without ever leaving the Brain. And of course, my other koi and gardening, there's Burpee Seeds, my Jackson and Perkins web link. Again, I can review those or find the correct area. So Jackson and Perkins is going to go in the flower garden. I'll navigate over to flower garden and add my attachment for Jackson and Perkins. There it is. Now, the brain will always name a web page with whatever the sort of the HTML programmer that made the web page, whatever is going to appear in the tab. So here you can see the thought name is roses, perennials, plant gifts, blah, blah, blah. I just want to rename this. So I'll go back into that thought properties, Jackson and Perkins, roses, or what they're known for. So I just simply rename that thought for easy access in the future. Great, so we've used our brain box when the brain we wanted to add this content into wasn't even open, let alone at the right thought. So we sent that information in through BrainBox. Let's utilize BrainBox from a mobile device. So I'm actually gonna open, if you can see here, I've got my phone in front of me, and I am going to share my phone on the screen. So I've got a little app that allows me to, whatever I'm showing here or seeing on my phone is going to be projected onto the screen. Let me bring that up. So there is a copy of my phone, and I'm just going to open it up, and I go right into my brain. I had my brain ready to go. This is the same brain. You're seeing the brain on my mobile device, on my phone, as what you're seeing on the desktop. So that we don't confuse you, let's minimize some of this content. And so this is just a little app that I like to use so I can see. I guess I can't minimize that little side thing. But anything that I tap on my phone, you can see as I navigate around. I recently was researching getting a new car. I'm back into my land area. I can navigate into my house and the Beverly house and get back to work on my project for the new 2022 backyard redo. So I've got access to all that information that you just saw me create while I was in the desktop application. My brain syncs into in the background into the brain cloud. And so you may have noticed as soon as I open this up, I'll tap on it again, the little cloud icon that appears, it's going to sync and update and keep this brain in sync as well. So I want to look up any of that data, the vegetable patch, I think I found a new website for, or a PDF for. I can launch that attachment, read those notes, or go through that PDF document right here from my iPhone. So easy access to all the information that's going in my brain, but it doesn't stop there. I can also send information into my brain very easily as well. And we've been getting a lot of feedback about BrainBox and how easy it is to use. We're really happy with this feature, particularly for mobile users of the brain. When we're in a hurry, we're on the go, we find information online, we need to retrieve and save that information, and you can do that through the BrainBox. So I am going to leave the brain minimize or just switch over to my web browser. So here I started searching for some fire pits. I'm looking for solo stove alternatives. And when I find something I like, I had no idea there were so many. Oh, and here's a nice little review of 8 different solo stoves or solo stove alternatives. Okay, this is great. It's the exact type of thing that I'm looking for. I want to add this into my BrainBox. So I'm going to do it on my phone, but you'll see what I'm clicking on here. Down at the bottom is that share button that I clicked on earlier from the Explorer page. Here on my mobile device, while I'm searching in my browser, and even so many apps have this share button. It's a little square with the arrow icon. From here, I can send it, as a text to one of my friends and colleagues. I can post it somewhere. If I scroll down through all the different options I have, there at the bottom is Add to BrainBox. There are no special steps you need to take to get this Add to BrainBox to appear when you tap on Share on your mobile device. It'll be there as soon as you install the Brain for iOS app. We also have a Brain for Android app as well, and the share button works just the same. So I found this great web page that's all about different types of stoves for barbecues and not camping, fire pits. Great, I'm gonna tap on add to Brain box. And there we go. It's been added into the Brain box. So now let's return back to the Brain. And I could do it here on my desktop. Once again, get into the Brain box, but right here from my mobile device. Now I've got a little bit of, once again, some time to spare. I can go in and start categorizing. And under my deck, so here's the updated patio. I've got a new grill, but I also want to create a new thought. So I'm going to tap on this little plus icon that you see there. So I'm going to add a new thought from my mobile device, fire pit. So I create a new thought for fire pit, and I'll tap on the Brain box icon that you see there. And there's all of my items. Actually, I see another thing that I want to add into this area of my brain as well. So there at the very top, you can see is the best solo stove alternatives. I tap and I've got my options down below. I can first preview. I actually want to create a new child thought. So I'll select that option. Down further in the list are some DIY Adirondack chairs. Saw these maybe a year ago and added it into my Brain box. It doesn't have a home yet in my brain. It's been sitting in the Brain box. If I'm gonna redo my patio, the backyard, I wanna create a couple of fantastic new modern looking Adirondack chairs. I am now gonna give this a home and I will attach as a child to that thought as well. So when you go back to my brain, here on my mobile device, I've added the fire pit thought. I've quickly added 2 attachments, in this case, web attachments that I found online on my mobile device. Now let's put the brain down on my mobile device and return to my desktop brain. There it is. And so the brain will sync in the background. If I just give it 3 to 5 minutes, it's going to sync automatically. You can check that on the desktop application, whether your brain is set to auto sync. And there, actually, when I clicked on it, it did sync in the background. So it's saying that my brain is up to date. Prior to that, it would have said that there were online updates. So you'll see little arrows up or arrows down. I need to have data on my brain that needs to sync to the cloud, or data on the cloud that needs to sync down to the brain. This is already synced in the background, so as soon as I go over to updating, oh no, it hasn't synced. There, it's syncing. So it's going to update. Oh, you know what? I didn't sync from my mobile device, and there I just saw on my mobile device it's synced. So the auto sync just kicked off on my mobile device. I had made those changes. That's a good example of plug and chug. You know, you can make those changes when you're offline, and then when your brain does connect, it syncs automatically for you. So I didn't click on the button to sync my mobile device. It auto synced after a few minutes. And there you can see Fire Pit has now appeared on the desktop application. I've got my modern Adirondack chair web page that I can't wait to build these Adirondack chairs, kind of funky and interesting, modern looking. And I've got my solo stove web page where I can do my research and decide which stove I'm going to buy for my new fire pit in my patio with the new 2022 backyard redo. So there, I hope that I've shared with you some examples of ways, several different ways to get data quickly into your brain, get it organized, updated to move forward with different projects that you're actively working on. We've taken a look at backlinks, mentions, unlinked mentions, some of the features of the smart notes, helping to remind you of existing data in your brain, and also collective knowledge management on the go, adding information into the brain when the brain isn't even in focus or on the screen currently, or from mobile devices into the brain that we can retrieve at a later date from a desktop device. Many, many different options for you to help you continue to use the brain application, smart notes, and collective knowledge base on the go. So we're just about at the end of the hour today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. And I saw sort of in the background that Chase had his hand full with quite a few questions that came in. So thanks for giving, keeping Chase busy. And Chase, any questions that you want to, that someone touched upon that you want to take a closer look at here in the demo? And everyone, please feel free to stay with us for the next 5 to 10 minutes. We'll go through a couple of Q&A scenarios to share some more data with you in the webinar. So Chase, I'll hand it over to you. What questions do you have for me?
Alrighty, first one up here is, can I move my brain data folder to another location on my computer?
You certainly can, yeah. Now, I'm not gonna actually go through those steps now. I'll show you where to click, but I'm not gonna click them because maybe you noticed when I went to my brain list, I have quite a few different brain databases for different topics. Now, sometimes you decide, all right, I wanna move all of my brains over to, maybe you've got a partition drive, your C drive and your D drive. We do encourage you to keep your brain data local. Don't move it onto a thumb drive. Don't move it onto a network location. That's going to cause problems if the brain application ever starts up and doesn't have access to that location. The application or doesn't have access to that location. The application thinks that something is happening that isn't, and you're going to lose access to your brain data. It's going to cause some problems that you'll need to troubleshoot and resolve later. So let's say I do want to move this to a different folder, to a different location. I can click on options and go into preferences. Again, a Mac user would click on TheBrain preferences. And on the system tab, you can see specifically where my storage data currently exists. So this is currently on my C drive in users. That's sort of a combination of my initials. And in the brains directory, if I wanted to select a new location, you would click on select folder. There's the warning message that says keep it local, don't move it onto a thumb drive. But you can say okay, navigate through your local machine, find a new blank directory. It's going to want to move into an empty location, and the brain will take care of the rest for you. If you have any further questions about that, now we're really getting into some sort of the back end nitty gritty of how the brain works. If you have any problems with that process, or you want further detail than the overview that I just gave you, send a note into support@thebrain.com. Want to make sure that you move that information easily. There are other ways to move brains as well. Let's say you're getting a new machine. Rather than moving your data folder, what I would recommend is you sync all your brains to the cloud, delete them from locally from your existing machine, travel over to your new machine, install the brain, log in. All your brains that are in the cloud are going to be available for you to download. No thumb drive necessary or needed at all. And also, if you're going to be doing big changes like that, we always recommend creating backups of your data. Let's say you just have one brain that you want to move to a new location. Why not play it safe and open that brain here? I'll just open my space brain. I click on File and select Backup to Brain Archive. I back this brain up to a single BRZ file so that if the move doesn't work correctly, I get sidetracked, my computer crashes, get kicked offline, whatever the case, I always have that secure archive file. Everything that's in the brain would go into that BRZ, brain archive, and I can back it up safely and securely at a later date.
Perfect, thank you. Got another good one here from Maurizio. Can you show how can you show how sharing a brain via a browser works with someone that doesn't have the brain themselves?
Absolutely, and I'm in a great brain to do that right now because this brain is accessible to you, the public, at any time if you want to browse through the Space Brain. Now, the Space Brain is a collaborative brain that we at TheBrain Technologies built just in our own recreational time. We've got a bunch of space geeks. I'm one, Chase. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to throw you into that category as well. We geek out on everything space, so we created a Space Brain. And this is a fascinating brain. There's hundreds and hundreds of thoughts. Everything that we know of that's revolving around the sun is under the sun link. And you can go to a particular planet and review all the human-made products that we have sent there. review the different moons and so forth. A really, really fun collaborative brain that we put together. Okay, some of you out there might be interested in space. You want to see this brain online. You don't have the brain installed. So I'm going to click on online. And the first thing that I would actually need to do, sorry, let me back that up. The first thing that I would need to do is sync. So in order for a person to see this brain through the web client, it needs to be online. So our servers are hosted at app.thebrain.com, app.thebrain.com. We've got fantastic security in motion so that, you know, when you sync your brain, it's private to your account. Only you can log in and access your brains that you sync to the cloud until you make it publicly accessible. Once you make it publicly accessible, anyone in the world with the URL can access that brain, and they don't need to have the brain application installed or even have a brain account. You can simply send them the URL. That brain is not being synced by, you know, Google search engines or anything like that. You have to have the URL for someone else to find that brain online. So we sync the brain to the cloud. We then can click on online and go into brain access and sharing. And oh, I misspoke. I'm in a different brain than I thought. I can allow public access and then copy and share this URL. So this URL is how you would find the brain online. I'll go ahead and save that. So great, now it is publicly accessible, and I'll sync once again so that the cloud version knows anyone can get to that URL. And now let's open up a web browser, which I believe I've minimized all of my, there they are. And I'm just going to paste that URL. Oh, I didn't get it on my clipboard, sorry. Online, brain access and sharing. There we go, I copy that and come back to my web browser and paste. And I go directly to this brain online. The brain, I actually am logged in right now, but regardless, even if I weren't logged in, I would be able to get to this brain online and start navigating through this brain through the web client. There's a lot you can do there. We won't get into all that today, but you can embed your brain on your own website. So if you've created a really fantastic brain that's all about you know, protecting rivers in your state, and you want to make it publicly accessible so people can research, you know, different ways to be active and keeping your rivers clean, great. Publish your brain, sync your brain to the cloud, and then embed your brain in your website. A lot of people have a lot of fun with that just because it's such a wonderful display of related data that's key focused on the topic that you're interested in.
Great. And then we got another good one here.
Okay.
If a friend creates a brain and shares it with me, can I import that into one of my own existing brains?
Aha, that is an interesting question. Yes, you can if it's shared in the right way. And once again, I'm going to stay on this space brain because this is a shared brain that we built through TeamBrain. TeamBrain allows multiple people to interact with the same brain database. So it's our collaborative license of the software. You can learn more about all the different license types, the price points, and so forth on our website at www.thebrain.com/store. And you can have a free license of the brain all the way up to TeamBrain. And even TeamBrain server. I won't get into that today, but that's where when you click on the sync button, it doesn't go to app.thebrain.com, it goes to your own private server. So that's for, we typically use for government organizations and so forth that want to really protect the brains that they're syncing. So regardless, this brain was built through TeamBrain. Now I want to share this brain with someone else, and they want to import it into their brain. So there's two different ways that I can do that. The first is to send them a BRZ. So I am the administrator of this brain. Therefore, I can click on File and back up to Brain Archive. And there are two radio buttons at the top, whether I want to, you know, only myself have access to this BRZ, so that's sort of a safety security, backup that I have. I can move that over into a secure location, and something happens to my laptop, I can back up my brain at a later date, and only I can do that. Or I can select the other radio option, anyone can extract the BRZ. So my friend Chase wants a copy of this particular brain. I can send him the BRZ. He can import it as a new brain. He can import it into an existing brain. Those are some radio options, radio button options in the import feature. The other option that I have is, because I have Team Brain, I can say online brain access and sharing, and I can select other people in my group that have Team Brain that can either have access to this brain as read-only mode. So let's add someone else. I'm gonna add Brigitte, and we'll say Brigitte can view this brain. She's got read-only mode. She can download a local copy. She can't make changes. When Brigitte clicks on the sync button, she's just receiving changes that have been made by editors or administrators. Chase, as you can see, is a writer on this brain, so he can edit and modify this brain. He cannot make a BRZ backup. He cannot make an archive. He can't delete the entire brain. He can't invite other people and give them access to this brain. He can just edit the brain on his machine, adding new content and editing content in the existing brain. If I want to make sure that Chase can create a BRZ, import it into another brain, invite other users in our group, and so forth, I then right-click and make Chase technically a co-administrator of this brain. Now he can make BRZs, he can invite other users, as can Harlan and Shelly on this particular brain as well. So they can all manipulate and access this brain and make those backups. So you specifically mentioned importing into this brain. If I just make Chase a writer, he can't import it into a separate brain. Only other administrators can do that. Or if I make that BRZ, that's unlocked and send that to him. So those are your options for manipulating the brain or importing a copy of this brain into another brain.
Great. Time for one more?
Yes.
Alrighty. If you create a table of contents in a note, and then you add a new heading to that note,
Yes.
will the table of contents update automatically?
It certainly will, absolutely. And let's get back to, I think I did that under my patio. So here we are, we're researching, and anything that is a title, subtitle, heading, or subheading is going to appear in the table of contents. So if I go way down and say, all right, I need to select pottery for the container garden, there's gonna be, I'll do some bullet points. Ceramic, and I've got some notes on ceramic down below. Oh no, let's make these, sorry. Ceramic, and that is going to be a subheading, or I'll have plastic, so I can do it this way as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plastic containers or wood, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let's just do a whole nother heading, 1, 2, 3. So it's all with the number of hashtags you put at the beginning. Select a location of fire pit, select an outdoor heater. So I've added new, with the 3 and 4 headings and subheadings to my document. And now when I go up to the top, I don't even need to refresh. There are the new headings and subheadings in the table of contents. You can also have a pop-up table of contents. Sometimes you get a note that's really, really big. If I go into my Shakespeare brain, I've got a lot of notes on different characters and plays and so forth, and I need to jump to a specific location within that brain, but the table of contents is all the way at the top of that note. If you were to print this note out, it's actually like 100 pages long. It's a huge, huge note. So you can just right-click, and there's an option for the pop-up table of contents that just appears as a hovering table, or you can hit Control-T on your keyboard. So here I am down at the bottom of my note. I hit Control-T, and there's my table of contents. Even if you don't insert a permanent table of contents in your note, you can always, within a note, click on Control-T, and navigate through your table of contents that way as well. Get all the way back to the top, Control T, and go all the way back up to my very first concrete removal, which is just below my permanent table of contents that I created by clicking on the button. Great, any more
Alrighty.
questions? These are some good ones. I'd say we've got time for one or two, so.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Is there any way other to work with BrainBox aside from just using the drop-down list in the upper right corner there?
There certainly is. BrainBox can appear. It's actually interwoven into the application. So sometimes you need to add an attachment. I want to add an attachment. I don't think I have anything else on patio, maybe vegetable patch I do. Rather than clicking on the button, if I click on attach, you can see I can add from BrainBox. So that appears in the attach dropdown. Maybe I've forgotten, I've added some content into BrainBox. I'm about ready to start a new document. Oh, maybe it's already in BrainBox. I can get to it from here. There's my BrainBox list, sort of appears as a little pop-up, and I can find my content that way. There it is. My burpee seeds is what I want to add under vegetable patch. So I've added that out of BrainBox. You can also pop your BrainBox out into a separate floating window or a floating brain. So if I click on the BrainBox icon, there's a context menu that allows me to open a new tab that is a BrainBox or a new floating or the actual BrainBox folder. Everything going into your BrainBox is in a directory, and it looks like this. Those are just my internal attachments. The web content isn't there, but any files, documents, images, pictures, and stuff, those are going to be what's contained in the folder. But if I want to see the web pages as well, the entire BrainBox, but just have it open as I'm reviewing the brain, what I'll do is I'll open a new tab. Here's my tab for BrainBox, and I can even click and drag that open into its own floating window. So let me just manipulate this the way I like it. So there's my BrainBox window, and here is the brain that I'm working in. Oops, let me just grab the corner there. So if I get back into my vegetable patch, and here's my brain. There's dill pickles. I want to grow things to make dill pickles. I can actually drag and drop now directly into, so under vegetable patch, now first you've got to grow them, then you can make them. And I'm also going to connect this to, I've got a whole area in my brain for canning. There we go, canning. So 2 parents, that falls under canning and falls under vegetable patch because it's related to both. So there are definitely different ways to interact with your BrainBox. Once you get to that stage of you've populated your BrainBox with the different scenarios that we've shared with you, how to get it back into your brain. And even from here, I can just sort of go through and review, do I need all of this content in my BrainBox? Am I ever going to find a home for soft sour roe dinner rolls using the Tangzong method? I am actually, because I love making bread. But regardless, you can just review it right here in the content window before you bring it over into the brain at a later date.
Alrighty, if you got time for one more, I have
Yeah,
one
sure,
last
one more, great.
Is there a way to turn off just the map links section at the bottom of a note?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. And one that we didn't even touch upon today. A lot of what is happening, let me get to a good thought with some content. There's my updated patio. So down below, we've got all of our mapped links and so forth. This one doesn't have a lot of backlinks. I think it was the Ipe thought, so we'll just go to Ipe. There we go. So this thought, as you can see, when we get down to the bottom, has some backlinks, some unlinked mentions. Of course, there are my mapped links, the visualization of the Plex. Let's give this a little more screen real estate. All highly adjustable. You can get there through the properties or the brain preferences rather. So options, preferences. You can manipulate in the notes what appears for you down below, the map links. Here they are right here, map links, backlinks, and unlinked mentions. You can also manipulate how often your unlinked mentions show up, or the sensitivity, I guess I should say. If you don't use that feature, you can turn them off. In my brain, no word would ever be underlined with that blue dashed underline. I think the default is show except for common words. So if you've got a thought called the is not going to be underlined every time you type it out in your note. I love being able to see my unlinked mentions, so I leave mine on show all. So they're always there in my note, appearing regardless of what the word is. So that's one way to manipulate sort of the sensitivity of your mentions showing up in your notes as you're typing. But you can also turn these features on and off if you decide not to use them. The title, the mapped links, the backlinks, and unlinked mentions, if I just right click in my note, there they are at the bottom. So if I want to turn my title off, I can always see the title in my Plex. If I don't utilize map links, backlinks, and so forth, I can one by one turn those off. So there I'm just left with the note. Whatever note I have in my brain or attachments, it's going to be in a nice clean display. I'm simply not utilizing that feature. So it's really up to you to decide whether you like it or not. At first, this is a fairly new feature in TheBrain 11. I didn't think that I was going to use it, but I left it on, and sure enough, just noticing that they're there, especially in my Shakespeare brain, oh my goodness, I'll go to a thought and not realize that, a particular word that I'm researching or a character is Falstaff shows up in 4, maybe even 5 different plays. He's mentioned in some plays, but he doesn't even have a line. So really, really great insight into your data by having those, particularly backlinks and unlinked mentions turned on. I would never have remembered organically in my head that Ipe is being mentioned on another house where we replaced a concrete slab with a wood patio, and I kept track, luckily, of prices too, so I can reference. I'm sure it's a lot more, and that'd be really interesting for me to find out. This is how much they were in 2008. Now it's probably at least double that. But regardless, very, very helpful just to know that that information is available.
Great, thanks, Matt.
Great, well, thank you, and thanks everyone for the new and interesting questions and staying with us. We still have a lot of attendees that stayed with us even past the hour and into the questions. We do need to end the webinar at this point. Thank you so much for joining me today for information on the go and smart notes. I hope you learned something and new different ways to utilize the Brain application. If you do have questions for us in the future, please feel free to write in an email, support@thebrain.com. If you visit our website, if you've ever noticed, there's a little chat message there. Maybe Chase's name will appear, maybe mine. That's really us. We're there and ready to help during normal business hours at any time. You're not just speaking to a bot, but you can contact us at support@thebrain.com. And if any of this information was really just over your head and a little too much to comprehend, you'll be receiving a recording of today's webinar in an email, the email you used to sign up for the webinar today. And you can always join us at for the Brain 101. Every Friday we hold a Brain 101 class. Please feel free to join me. I won't get this in detail with the utilizing BrainBox and the iOS device and smart notes and so on, but I go over really the basics, creating thoughts and adding content to those thoughts, web pages, Word documents, new files from scratch. We didn't even talk about that today, and a little bit more of a review of the notes feature of the Brain to help you get started with the application. So feel free to sign up for the Brain 101 on our website at www.thebrain.com. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Have a great rest of your week. And as always, enjoy your brain. Bye, everyone.